Here. Thanks, Chair Zuber,
Here,
thank you for being here for.
next item, public comment. Do we have any public comment online?
Seeing none online.
Anybody from our large audience here today? All right, seeing none, moving on. Next item is the consent calendar, minutes from our last meeting on May 2nd, 2025. Any public comment?
No public comment online.
Don't see anybody anxiously. Any questions from the committee? Yeah. I would entertain the motion.
Move to approve.
Second. We do roll call since we're all here.
You're
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 4, resolution approving an agreement with Rail Pros for support services for the Sac City College project. You're up.
Morning.
Good morning.
Right, let's. Finally figuring out that. Excellent, so, all right, City College Station projects. So each of our projects have 2 professional services agreement. One is to design the project and the other is project management, project development, support services. So in May, the Rail Commission recommended and the committee approved the design services for the project. So today, this item is for the companion agreement for the project management services. So I'd like to provide a brief overview of the project. The City College Station is part of the Valley Rail program. It's one of 6 in total stations north of Stockton. And it's to better connect our travelers from San Joaquin County into Sacramento. So the planned station is adjacent to the Sac RT or Rapid Transit station, the existing station. And this is near Sutterville Road in Sacramento. And you can see the overcrossing for Sutterville Road in the background of the picture. UP also has 2 mainline tracks here and tracks for their yard, which are shown in that area in green through the center. The new station is going to feature at-grade passenger loading, tracks for the ACE train, cross-platform transfers to the Sacramento RT, and then new crossovers, and that's what you see in the little yellow bubble at the top of the picture. We'll also have a systems building, signs and wayfinding, a security fence, and existing parking. We'll be able to utilize the existing parking and bus drop-off areas at the Sac RT station. So this agreement is for those project management services. It includes project and design oversight, supervision of the design team. A big key component, build consensus with our stakeholders for this project, that is Sac RT, City of Sacramento, Sacramento City College, and to manage the project with the goal to deliver it on time and on budget. And that's really key for us as we're moving these projects forward and we want to maintain both schedule and cost. So they will also be able to apply lessons learned in delivering projects like these from some of their previous other projects, and then lead the delivery of the design specifications and estimates for this project. And lastly, they're going to identify and mitigate risks that have that we see during the development of this particular project. So for the procurement approach, I'm going to hand it over to Autumn.
Thank you, Christine. In November of 24, we released an RFP via Planet Bids, went to our DBE firms and Chamber of Commerce's. And then in January of 25, we received 5 proposals. Aruga Corporation, Lockwood Andrews and Newman, Canino Management Group, Rail Pros, and SSC. And we deemed all of the proposals responsive. So the response proposals were evaluated by a panel consisting of the Rail Commission staff and contracted staff. And 4 of the firms listed on this slide, they were invited for interviews. So after combining the scores, staff did deem SSC Inc. as the most responsive and responsible proposer, and we entered into negotiations. Unfortunately, we weren't able to come to an agreement on an exact scope and price, and so we moved on to the next top ranked, which was RailPros. We were able to reach an agreement on the exact scope and price, and so we have now deemed them the most responsive and responsible proposer. So the agreement will be effective upon execution by both parties. It's for an amount a little over $1.6 million for 5 years with 2 one-year options. As always, the option years are up to the committee to utilize and would be negotiated in advance. So the fiscal impact, this project is in the capital budget in the Sacramento City College budget line. When prepping, there was a typo in the staff report. We failed to add the Mark Thomas agreement that you all approved in May to the encumbered amount, and so this is the correct budget breakdown. So the budget remaining for this phase, if approved, would be a little over $823,000. And so staff recommends approval of this agreement, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? No appeal. Go ahead.
No questions. Oh, sorry.
I just had a question. Can you walk me through what happened with the preferred respondent? Did they not fully understand the scope?
I can't.
The request was put out and things changed on our end.
Nothing changed on our end. There's only so much because the contract's not executed yet. That's still not public to share because it's still within that realm. It was the scope and understanding, and then the time frame was trying really hard to go there.
Basically, it was mutually agreed upon, hey, we can't do this.
Yeah, I can say that it was multiple meetings and multiple attempts. It wasn't just one and just like done. It was really drilled down and tried to get there, and we just could not get there.
Okay.
Do you have any public comment?
Seeing none online.
Any in the room? There are no further comments or questions. I would entertain a motion on the item.
So.
Sorry.
Here we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, pedestrian shelters for the Valley Rail Program update. Fine.
Well, good morning, and the item that we have for you today, I think one of the sort of the directives that we feel as staff that we've received both from you and your respective boards, the JPA as well as the Rail Commission, but also you as a committee, is that as processes go forward, as staff really takes the directives from you and moves forward, sometimes there's an opportunity to say we should be reflective about whether that direction continues to be the direction that we should go down. And so we have provided several different items, and as well as like pictures and sort of directions on procurement of the pedestrian shelters for the Valley Rail program. We've gone through that process. We've come to sort of a moment in that process where we're prepared to bring an action to you, the committee, but we want to, before we do that, I want to make sure that we have a robust discussion and make sure that we're still on the path that you as the committee would recommend us to move forward. So I'll walk a little bit through kind of where we've been, where we are now, and maybe some thoughts on different alternatives. So as a part of the Valley Rail design process, if you remember sort of all the way back, we've gone through a very iterative process on how a station is designed, as well as the elements within that station, how they sort of end up at the station in the end. And the picture sort of to the right is a picture that we've shown several times of what we would envision a shelter on the platform to look like in a Valley Rail station. Additionally, at a point in this process where we were moving some of these items forward, we also recommended to you and you directed staff on a procurement approach for some of these items. And so items like these pedestrian shelters, it was recommended that we would put out a procurement that would procure all of those shelters across the entire Valley Rail program for consistency, for economies of scale, so that when you arrived at a Valley Rail station, you were sure, right, this sort of furniture kind of looks similar. I feel like I'm in the right place. And so we have done that. We have set out that procurement, and we're coming here before we bring that procurement to you. with this item. Just as a point to kind of remind you of how many of these things there are, because there are quite a few. At a standard Valley Rail station, you would be looking at something around 4 shelters on the platform. You can see those sort of like indicated in the ones in yellow. So it's sort of like a typical 1,000-foot long platform, about 4 of them per station. Many of the stations in the Valley Rail program also include bus areas. And so there's a similar but sort of toned down shelter concept that was also a part of this process. And typically a Valley Rail station has about 2 of those.
Recording in progress.
Okay.
Sorry about that, David.
No problem. And so you can see sort of this is like a typical station here to the right, not a specific one. So you can see those sort of in the 2 bubble. Now every station is slightly different, right? Depending on site conditions, where we have to spot sort of the walkway over the platform. So some of these things might change slightly. That's a generalized representation of how these would be employed. So if you look at the program overall, you'd be looking at somewhere around 70 plus structures, like when you put them all together. So it's a large number of items that are a part of this discussion. So as I mentioned, the staffs put out a procurement for these shelters to onboard a fabricator and a manufacturer. So as the design team put together really kind of like the rough outline of what we had intended for them to fabricate, but their scope elements included these sort of 3 things in general: to refine that concept to something that they would fabricate. So, putting it into their processes, their flow, as well as some value engineering, perhaps like if, something that we propose could be done in a cheaper way. Then to prepare to fabricate and deliver per project. So that was the way in which that procurement approach went out, that we wouldn't procure 70 plus shelters and store them at the RMF, but as the procurement documents went out for each construction project, their bid would be put into the construction plans, and then they would deliver those shelters as needed over the course and the life of the program. And that also meant that they had to estimate in some way sort of the price for that shelter over the life of the program. And we provided a rough schedule of when we thought we would need some of those items. As we've gone through the process, as we've done some negotiations with the vendor, I think one of the things that staff has realized is where we thought we were going to come in more on the economies of scale side, we have perhaps come out on the more premium side of things when it comes to shelters in relation to transit applications. And so we'll walk a little bit through kind of where we are on the sort of the sliding scale, but also where some other options might also land. So just to sort of like to put like a simplified scope of other shelter options, here are a few ideas. One would be, the Valley Rail program could sort of take a step back and say, well, maybe we would want to look at prefabricated shelter, something that's really off the shelf, a more simple shelter, kind of little to no customization, maybe in the order of magnitude around 200 to 300,000 per structure. Or sort of in the middle there, a contractor built shelter. So rather than enlisting the services of a fabricator, and then they would deliver the site furniture for installation, the contractor who is going to construct the station would build the shelter. This would change a little bit sort of the fit and function slightly, where really you'd be moving into sort of more standard structural steel elements, less customization, probably simpler construction, so that you'd end up with a lower overall cost. So you probably could add in some of the elements that we've discussed with you over the course of the design. Maybe that's in sort of the middle range, as we estimated, sort of in the 400 to 500, or the original scope as it has been spec'd, sort of this very like custom shelter fabricated where we're looking at an order of magnitude somewhere around 800 to $1 million. That's a rough estimate. And so kind of to talk a little bit deeper into these to give you a sense for, well, what would the passenger experience and what would be a discussion that we then can have following a prefabricated shelter. These are shelters that I'm sure you are very familiar with as you would go to maybe a BRT stop or a smaller light rail stop, something that's smaller, more modest, less customization. In the shelters we were proposing would have PIDs sort of like hanging from the top, cameras for safety and security, PA speakers, things of this nature, maybe a little more simpler design. I draw your attention sort of to the middle design here, which is like if you sort of think of what our shelters were that we were proposing, sort of like a shrunk down version of that with the kind of the expanded metal in the back that still carries like some images and things that we could still use with the cities, but a smaller version of that. Here are some examples of contractor built shelters. So the two pictures on the left are the shelters at the EBART station in Antioch. So you can see from sort of like not a lot of swooping lines, right? But more like straight, hard angles, like in probably juxtaposition to some of the other elements at your stations. Probably not too dissimilar to kind of some of the hard angles of some of the Valley Rail elements, very modern design. But different on the bottom right is our hometown right here in Saucon. So that's actually the shelter on the back of the RMF for the SNI tracks. Just recently during the RMF expansion, that shelter was expanded to match the new length of the building. So sort of like that could also be an option. Obviously could be scaled down, but has even some of the elements like sort of like the dual-sided elements of the shelter that we procured. And then this is sort of the shelter concept that we have been working toward. And you can see sort of like a very large shelter with multiple seating areas. You can see the PID sort of in the middle. And then again, like sort of like 4 of these over the course of the platform, and then a few of them in the parking area for the bus turnouts. So as we sort of consider, well, do we continue down the pathway that we've been going, or do we perhaps look at other options and open it now, like for a Q&A, perhaps about pros and cons to some of these ideas, and happy to answer any questions that would then form that discussion that we could, as staff, bring in an action to you, the committee, in the future.
I've got one question. The dollar amounts that you have at the bottom, is that per station or is that per structure?
Per structure, but the structure and the installation.
So to do the 6 that your typical one showed could vary anywhere from 1.2 million up to $6 million.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm gonna follow on with the money part, but I kind of look at the bus shelter different from the platform
Mhm.
shelter. So my first question is, are all the bus shelters on our property versus a city property? I think about the inner city ones, or where we are in Midtown, so I've never been in Midtown, but I'm thinking about some of those. So are they all on our property?
Yes.
I need to link that this is actually would be the platform shelter. It's not a bus, it's an example of a bus shelter, but it would become our on-platform shelter if we picked it. In addition to bus shelters we would have out on the free.
Yeah, but I think what Lisa, like the ones that we did propose for the buses.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ones that we are proposing that we would be procuring would be only the ones installed on our property.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not sort of in the case that you mentioned in Midtown. Yes, there are bus stops around,
Right.
but we're not going to SAC-RT saying, hey, we're going to install our own bus shelter. Yeah, we're not doing that. Though we are proposing signage that would help link things, but yeah, but not in that case.
So along those lines, the bus shelter is something that to me could be a next level down versus platinum. It could be about the whole project together, the character together. So, you know, I kind of look at it like different things, and to tell you the truth, I find the prefabricated shelter, because I kind of see elements, as you said, we could use in my opinion, no, but. I also see more protection there than in the contractor, because I think that some of these locations where the winds come moving in. And you have stood on platforms before in the rain, it drives in no matter what, and this is a very large opening. So, I guess on the prefab, one of my questions would be the issue of maintenance. You know, is it easy enough to replace elements, you know, is it cost effective to do so? Knowing on the prefab what the life cycle is, you know, that type of thing would be useful. You know, I don't know, I mean, I like the original concept, but not as a $1 million platform. I understood things that is cost effective, and have so much need for the rest of the system, so. That's kind of where I'm, and I contractor build would be a direction for, but again. I find the prefab very less. That's the case, if we need to step up something for the platform. I can understand that, I think that's the only direction to go that off right now.
Yeah, I mean, we should just like separate the two discussions, right? What do we do in the bus area? What do we do on the platform? And I do think in the contractor built area, though, this is what EBAR did. It's not to say that we couldn't also say, hey, we want some wind screening as a part of that, you know, to sort of like add in some of those elements. Yeah.
Question about the usage for the bus shelters. Are these shelters for throughway buses that we would be running, or are these shelters for the local transit?
In most cases, there would be shelters for local transit, but at like within our station envelope. Yeah.
Sure. In that case, I would agree with Director Craig relative to the bus shelters. But I think when you look at that order of magnitude, obviously original concept, I think that's thrown away money for what we would be getting. But the thing that I think it's important that we hold on to is all the work that we've done for branding of these stations. In the cases where we're going to be having to construct a structure, I'd hate to lose that and have our station look just like the BART station that's next to it. You're right, John. Something that is unique, so if it's prefabricated, as long as it's still not replicated the right next to it.
Our prefabricated.
Yeah.
No, that was my question too, is if prefabricated contains in that the ability to design the prefabrication so that you get what you want, but on a large scale. I have no problem with that. But if we're going out, if we're gonna look at that one over there in Southern California station, and then ours is gonna look the same, I'm not sure.
Okay, I think that discussion is helpful to know what elements are important to you, specifically that idea of we want something that carries the brand and the theme and I would say staff will investigate on the prefabricated side. We're probably like no modifications, or else we're just gonna end up like having a fabricator do sort of what we did. But on the contractor side, we probably have that option to say, let's add the elements that kind of make it feel unique. And if that's what's important, and I'm hearing now, I think that's something that we can explore and then bring back to you an update.
Well, I mean, the whole time this committee been in existence, that's been one of the drivers behind this.
Yes.
We want people to know, regardless of
Yeah.
where they are, that this is a regional rail commission or it's our station. This is how it works. This is what you're into when you get here.
Yes.
And if we can do that and get a prefabricator to work on those lines, go for it.
Okay.
Otherwise, to me, it's worth a little extra money so that we have that identification that we wanted to have so bad.
Okay, yeah, then that's very, very helpful, very helpful.
Yeah, I think the wind screens are important. I mean, I'm really
Yes.
about the comfort of the passenger too, because sometimes you sit there for 20, 30 minutes because of bus delays or train delays, and you know, it's hard to be outside in the elements if that's the case. So I agree. Interesting, go to prefab as a potential option because of how much work we put into the
Yeah.
design. But,
Get it for $100,000.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of branding.
yeah,
and
yeah.
It would be very difficult for us to go with the original concept and the price difference. When you can invest some of that money in, it's the branding.
And the contractor built picture here is just for illustration. It's not to say that if we go with
No.
contractor built, we can't have the,
Something.
we have to have it.
Perfect. Yeah.
We design what we
Right.
want.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that we would design it in such a way that it is cost effective, but also matches sort of the need. So I think there'll be like a coming together of both of those concepts, yeah.
Be cheap without looking cheap.
Yeah.
But there you go. Let me write that one down.
That's
Okay, that I think it's the, yeah, I think it's the needs are.
All right, thank you. Committee member comments, anybody? Such a vocal group.
Yeah, I took mine.
All right. Madam Attorney, you want to put us in your closed session?
Certainly, thank you. We have one item on closed session, that is item number 7 pursuant to government code section 54956.8. Please bear with me. That is property acquisition of additional railroad trackage right-of-way and trackage rights within the Valley Rail project corridor, including but not limited to Sacramento subdivision between Elk Knoll or Stockton, milepost 95, and the Thomas, milepost 147. Fresno subdivision between Elk Knoll, Stockton, milepost 83, and Lathrop UP connection, milepost 84.5. And Fresno subdivision between Lathrop UP connection, milepost 84.5, and Turlock, milepost post 129. The agency negotiator is Stacey Mortensen, the executive director. Negotiating party is Union Pacific Railroad Company, the Ellsworth Corporation. Price and payment terms are under negotiation. With that, we are adjourned to closed session. We'll have it on the. Thank you. I'm like, why is it?
We can stay in closed session.
As long as they bring snacks and a plate with the product, that's fine.
Yeah. Bring reinforcements.
I don't know, that wasn't 20 minutes, Leo.
Yeah, it was. Clock stopped, that's okay.
We don't have closed session.
Are we ready? Okay.
Was that?
Okay, go on.
Sir, we have one item on closed session, that was item 7, which was discussion of trackage rights and regarding UP and the agency. That item was discussion, direction was given by the committee, and at this time, there is no other reportable action.
So now we can go on to my favorite part of the agenda.
We can.
Is that your favorite?
What do you say?
My world just opens up.
Okay.
All right, we will adjourn until our next meeting on September 5th at 11, well, as it stands now, 11:30, it could be 11:10 or 10:50.
Well, it's special.
But it will be agendized as a special meeting if we think we can start it.
Whatever, we're adjourned.